invisibly protected from our sense. The dryad lives drenched in a deeper ray. What a beautiful description. And feels another air of storms and calms and quivers inwardly with mystic rain. See, this is a kind of an elaborate simile. He is describing the sapling growing. And therefore, in the whole connection of the sapling's growth, you have naturally a reference to the dryad. And the spirit of joy which is there, it is that which is coming out here. As I told you, in the case of kids, we have got light-winged dryad of the trees. He calls the nightingale a light-winged dryad of the trees. Now, this is a very typical style of epic poetry. You pick up a certain aspect and elaborate in great detail, which is indirectly describing the person concerned. You are describing sapling, tree, joy, happiness, name, everything, etc., 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 and associate them immediately with the person concerned. So that is a very beautiful poetic technique. And Shabendra has at the same time at his command the whole of English poetry. He remembers, he knows what Keats has said about the dryad of the trees. Appropriately that comes here, see, the dryad of the trees. There is another reference also. It belongs to Shelley's Skylark. We are talking about the bird, Shelley's Skylark. There, the poet Shelley speaks of an unbodied joy. He is calling the skylark an unbodied joy, whose race is just to begun. Whose race is just begun. He is calling the skylark an unbodied joy, whose race is just begun. In fact, that is what we have got. At once she seemed to found a mightier race, whose race is just begun. The associations are very distinct, you see, with that. And now why says unbodied joy? It is a kind of a formless joy. But here the joy is taking shape now. It is getting a form. And it is that form which will bring about a new race, whose race just begun. See. I will read a particular stanza from Shelley. He is addressing to a skylark. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, with the voice of the skylark. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud. In the night only one lonely cloud, night is bare there. The moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed because of that song of the bird. All earth and air with thy voice is loud. Because of that, heaven is overflowed. Then, of course, he also says in the same poem, Actually, the pang of his creation is very poignant, very painful. He says, I fall upon the thorns of life. I bleed. There cannot be anything more poignant than that. I fall upon the thorns of life. I bleed. And yet, here we have got a bird whose unbodied joy is going to bring about a new race. Although the condition is like that, I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. Yet, an unbodied joy whose race is just begun, that is the beauty of the thing. Savitri has come for that purpose. This at a heavenlier height was shown in her, because she is a bird flying at the highest level, in the highest sky. So at her height, she is shown what the joy is going to be. Even when she bent to meet earth's intimacies, her spirit kept the stature of the gods. It stooped, but was not lost in matter's reign. She accepts the material condition, the physical life, the human life, but she does not bleed in that sense. She accepts matter's reign to transform it, to change it. A world translated was her gleaming mind. So now he is describing her other features. What kind of mind she has? A world translated. And marble moon, bright, crowding fantasies, fed with spiritual sustenance of dreams, the ideal goddess in her house of gold. That is what she lives here. She is an ideal goddess in her house of gold, with marble moon, bright, crowding fantasies in her soul, fed with spiritual sustenance of dreams. The dreams, what they give, the spiritual sustenance, it is on that she is living. Well, this is poetry. You have to just, you have to keep on reading it and absorb it. Outlined in the sincerity of that ray. Now you say, in the sincerity of that ray. That is the purity. That is the important thing. The faithfulness of the experience. That is the most important thing. Her springing childlike thoughts were richly turned. 94.35.
There are two more cantos.
Oh, we have missed something?
Yeah. We have missed two
sentences before.
Okay, let me see.
Way of forms. To which our
33 and 34 are missing.
A word translated, then
That is 32.
okay, aware of forms. No?
way of forms.
No, I thought we had to be, okay, yeah. Aware of forms to which our eyes are closed. Yeah, that's right here. Aware of forms to which our eyes are closed, conscious of nearness, we cannot feel. See, this is our human condition. But it means that, by implication, she is aware of it. She is aware of it, you see. Aware of forms. Our eyes cannot see. She has got eyes by which she can become aware of forms. Conscious of nearness, we cannot feel. The power within her shaped her molding sense in deeper figures than our surface type. Now here the power, P is capital, the divine Shakti herself who is seated in her soul. It is she who is shaping her faculties, her perceptions, her senses, all the five senses, even beyond those five senses. Everything is being shaped by the divine power which is there within her. Now, this is important. in a certain sense. Savitri is hardly a few weeks old girl, maybe months perhaps, you see. And already there is a power within her who is molding her sense, her perceptions, her faculties. She is already molding it. Now, it is not that Savitri has done any yoga. She is still just born. But there is always something in her which is shaping her life, which is making those instruments ready for the necessary work. That power is always there, making those instruments ready for the necessary work. Now that happens, there is no education there, there is no teaching there, there is no learning also there. It is being done by somebody else for her within her soul. The power within her shaped her molding sense in deeper figures than our surface types. An invisible sunlight ran within her veins. This is absolutely marvelous. An invisible sunlight ran within her veins. So it is not our blood which is running in the veins. It is the sunlight which is running in her nerves, in her limbs, in her body, everywhere. It is bound to be so because there is a power within her. It is that which is working here. And flooded her brain with heavenly brilliances that woke a wider sight than earth could know. Obviously. Now, an invisible sunlight ran within her veins is an inborn quality of Savitri, although she is in the human form. She is born with that sunlight rushing through her body. That is an inborn quality of Savitri. Now, here the reference, and flooded her brain with heavenly brilliances. See, this is something, as I was telling you just now, a native power of Savitri. But when her instruments grow, her faculties develop for the dynamism in action, then again when it happens, her brain, when it gets flooded at that point with brilliances, when her brain gets flooded with brilliances at that time, when she has grown up, when she has done some yoga and all that, at that time, then the quality of her brain is something which is now opening to the supramental light and force. Here it is divinely born in her, but when she grows into her human state fully and acquires the possibility of receiving the supramental light and force in her physical, then it is a different state. She is going to get that thing when she will do yoga. Here this is an inborn gift by which she is growing, but ultimately that has to come into expression when she is working here around. An invisible sunlight ran with in fact, that is what happens after long tapasya of Ashwapati. His brain was wrapped with overwhelming light. His brain was wrapped with overwhelming light. That is the siddhi of the mind of light which Ashwapati receives. The siddhi of mind of light comes after that yogic tapasya. Savitri is going to get that thing later on. But as an inborn quality of hers, that mind of light is dormant, is present always in her. An invisible sunlight ran within her vein and flooded her brain with heavenly brilliances that woke a wider sight than earth could know. Have I skipped two or what? Yeah. Outlined in the sincerity of that ray, her springing childlike thoughts were richly turned into luminous patterns of a soul's deep truth, and from her eyes she cast another look on all around her than man's ignorant view. All objects were to her shapes of living selves, and she perceived a message from her kin in each awakening touch of outward thing. Now it is the impact of that knowledge, or that presence, that power which is working in her in the outward actions. This is what I got here in these two sentences. Each was a symbol power, a vivid flash in the circuit of infinities half known. Nothing was alien or inanimate, nothing without its meaning or its cause. Everything has its purpose, objective, aim. Certain result had to be obtained. For with a greater nature, she was one. Now, this is the clinching line. With a greater nature, she was one. Even as a baby, you see. Now, greater nature in the philosophical, metaphysical language would stand for what is called para prakriti, the transcendental nature. What we are governed by, our nature, is a lower nature. The physical, the vital, the mental, the subconscious. It is by that nature we are governed. Now, the higher nature, the greater nature, as it says here, the transcendental nature, para prakriti, is the divine power of knowledge, love, beauty, joy, action. All those things are there. And Savitri was one with them. She was already one with them. The divine aspects of working, or the divine power, or the divine dynamism, she was already one with them. For with a greater nature, she was one. Now, what it means is that is there already present in her. It has to come out now into human action. That is what is going to happen later on, you see. As from the soil sprang glory of branch and flower, again he is going back to the tree and the seed, flower. As from the animal's life rose thinking man, he is in 2 lines, he is describing the entire state of evolution. From matter to life to thinking man. A new epiphany appeared in her. New world is going to appear, is going to manifest in Savitri. Now this is going to happen first in her person. When it happens in her, then it can happen in others. Now, what is that greater nature? Here I got a description in 94.4040. Hers is a mind of what type? A mind of light, a life of rhythmic force, a body instinct with hidden divinity. Already that divinity is present in that body. Instinct with hidden divinity. Your physical is already possessed by the divine presence. A mind of light. Now this phrase, mind of light, is a kind of a general phrase. Bright mind, luminous mind. It is not the phrase which is technically used by Sri Aurobindo in other places. Mind of light is the physical mind receiving the supramental light and force. In the technical jargon, Sri Aurobindo defines the mind of light as the physical's mind is the physical, receiving the supramental light and force. It is not that mind of light which is mentioned here, which is referred to here. It is her mind which is luminous, which is bright, which is open to higher illumination, a life of rhythmic force. He is describing the three qualities, the physical, the mental, the vital of Savitri. Her mind is a mind of light. Her vital is a force of rhythmic action. Her body is already possessed by the divine, prepared an image of the coming God. That is what is happening in her soul first. It is when that image is prepared within her that it can come out. And who is going to prepare that image? It is the divine Agni, the mystic fire, who prepares that image in the soul. Now the divine Agni, the mystic fire, the mother says in one of her talks, it is the psychic being which will materialize and bring about the transformed body. The transformed body, she is connecting with the materialization of the psychic being. That is the divine Agni. That is the mystic fire which is there. The job, the role, the purpose, the function of Agni is to produce a form. He is the form maker. He is the form creator. He gives shapes, Agni. And if there has to be a physical form to hold the divine qualities, it is the job, it is a task of the divine fire of Agni. And it is that divine fire which is seated in our soul, the psychic being, who is going to do that. And therefore the mother says, the physical transformation is the work of the psychic being. It is the psychic which will materialize and bring about the divine form. Prepared an image of the coming God, and when the slow rhyme of the expanding years and the rich murmur of swarm work of the days had honey-packed her sense and filled her limbs, accomplishing the moon orb of her grace, self-guarded in the silence of her strength, her solitary greatness was not less. Now that is the work with the transcendental nature, Paraprakriti, the greater nature doing in Savitri. See, he simply says transcendent nature. And the entire description of what is going to happen is what we have here in this sentence. The poet does not leave anything hanging. He does not simply make a statement and leave you to infer the way you would like. He describes every little detail. Mind of light, a force of rhythmic dynamism, a body instinct with the divine. This is what is going to happen here. Nearer the Godhead to the surface pressed, a sun replacing childhood's nebula, soaring in a blue and lonely sky. Nearer the Godhead to the surface pressed. This is what she is doing. See, all the while. A sun, now what was kind of nebulous until now, because she is a baby. Now that nebula is turning into a sun, a brilliant light, giving illumination to everything all around it. A sovereign in a blue and lonely sky. That is what Savitri is, lonely. Blue. Blue stands for the highest type of mind. Blue color, Shivandu's color is the blue color. sovereign in a blue and lonely sky. Upward it rose to grasp the human scene. The strong inhabitant turned to watch her field. Now, this is a little puzzling line. In fact, all lines are puzzling. The strong inhabitant turned to watch her field. Now, inhabitant, that power which is there seated in Savitri. I is capital here, inhabitant. It is who is seated within her soul. It is that who has turned to watch her field. Now, this her is a little difficult word. All these words are very difficult. Her stands for whom? Does it stand for Savitri? Does it stand for inhabitant?
For Savitri in matter. For Savitri in matter.
Savitri.
Yeah, in her body.
Turn to watch her field. Well, it could be inhabitant also watching her field.
Then it would be capital A.
That's all right. Yeah, that her could refer to inhabitant, strong inhabitant. It could of course mean also Savitri. So that is the beauty of poetry. It leaves some of these things purposely like that, unspecified, and you have to go by your own perceptions. The strong inhabitant turned to watch her field. A lovelier light assumed her spirit brow. That is what we have on her brow. Now, if you go by this line, it will tell you that her stands for Savitri. The context. Both of them could be, but still now the discussion which follows is specific to Savitri. A lovelier light assumed. What I am saying is, if I read only that line and stand there alone, then whether her is for inhabitant or for Savitri, that you cannot resolve.